They're fucking LARPing. That's fucking hilarious. Well, hey there and welcome back for another Secondhand Opinions video. I'm Jason Alderman, the internet's favorite. Fat mouth, fat ass, bringing you fat stacks, fuck facts. And to tell you what, the media are finally shifting gears on their perspective on the quote-unquote peaceful riots. Sorta. Let's go ahead and take a look at it, guys. Over here at the National Review, talking heads finally accept reality of riots only to pin blame on white nationalists and Russians. Others have continued to argue it doesn't exist or has been blown out of proportion. After months of daily unrest and violent crime surges in major American cities, some media figures finally felt compelled to ditch the mostly peaceful canard and discuss the violence only to pin the blame on nebulous actors such as Russia and white supremacists. Cities such as Portland, Oregon, which has seen a spike in shootings and an unrelenting wave of arson and vandalism in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which suffered nearly $2 million in riot damage last week, have borne the consequences of daily protests transforming into nightly chaos. But rather than reporting on the groups and actors we know to be behind the surge in lawlessness, pundits are choosing to push their own recycled conspiracies. Take MSNBC anchor Joy Reid, who warned, without evidence, as the pundit class has become so fond of saying, that the unrest was being perpetrated by Trump supporters and white nationalist mobs. The riots are not Black Lives Matter marches gone wrong. Armed white nationalists are mobbing these cities to take advantage of protests and scare fellow white people into quietly siding with them. It's an old, tired, and true strategy, using fear and anti-blackness for politics. Reid tweeted. Again, I'm going to have to take umbrage with this paragraph. I think they are Black Lives Matter rioters as well as Antifa rioters, and many of them are white, yeah, sure. They're not scaring us into quietly siding with them. They're pissing us off into voting for Donald Trump. Reid's diagnosis ignores that leftist agitators had been torching and vandalizing business and assaulting people at random for months in Portland before Trump supporters showed up in any significant number. She also has the cause and effect exactly backwards in the most recent instance of political violence, the one she was ostensibly referring to, in which a Trump supporter was shot and killed on Saturday by a suspect who has publicly declared his allegiance to Antifa and who has the bald fist of the Black Power movement tattooed on his neck. Rather than accept and report on the fact that there is a growing contingent of black bloc anarchists intent on tearing up American cities, CNN's chief political correspondent, Dana Bash, went looking for a familiar yet conveniently distant culprit. Bash asked Adam Schiff, the same Adam Schiff who breathlessly claimed for more than a year that he had seen evidence of Trump-Russia collusion even after closed-door hearings found none. Whether Russia is trying to fuel some of the civil unrest. The California congressman did not bat an eye. We have to worry about their aggravating these tensions in our cities, he stated. While Russia is undoubtedly trying to help along the self-destructive elements now ascending on the American left, it isn't Russian meme makers who are burning down city blocks. The obscurantism isn't confined to talking heads and detached national politicians, either. In May, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey blamed white supremacists, members of organized crime, out-of-state instigators, and possibly even foreign actors for the violence in his city, despite arrest records indicating his claims were baseless. Many have pointed to Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old who was charged with murder for killing 2 men in Kenosha, as a totem of white supremacy and proof that President Trump is baiting his supporters into a race war. According to these analysts, Rittenhouse was the kind of white supremacist who kills white people hours after showing up to a demonstration with the express purpose of providing medical care to injured BLM protesters. That's a wicked way to twist things. Y'all know how I feel about Kyle Rittenhouse. He didn't do anything wrong. He's protecting himself. All the evidence points that he was attacked by a bunch of felons, several of whom were armed. They should have made better choices in life, period. Then and before. And for every Kyle Rittenhouse, there are dozens of far-left activists and provocateurs, many of whom have lengthy criminal records, who have been arrested for instigating chaos, as journalists such as Andy Ngo have meticulously cataloged. even as the New York Times attempted to explain away the violence as the inevitable result of right-wing activists bent on countering the racial justice protests with an opposing vision of America. It quoted a Portland activist who helps organize security for Black Lives Matter protests and carries a baton and a taser. The tactics the BLM enforcer discusses mirror those discussed on Telegram, an anonymous message app used to orchestrate protesters. An anarchist website such as Crime the Incorporated, which provides anonymous first-person accounts of riots illustrating how many of the protesters actively seek conflict with police. Diagrams shared on far-left Telegram channels and reviewed by National Review instruct the woke how to construct shield wall formations and counsel them to consult gear checklists, which include weapons and defensive combat equipment, before heading out to the day's mostly peaceful protest. The diagrams also include descriptions of various protest rules, such as range soldiers, whose responsibility it is to throw projectiles at police, and fire mages, who set fire to objects and launch flaming projectiles. See? They're fucking LARPing. That's fucking hilarious. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's great. That's great. Didn't get enough D&D when you were a kid, huh? Okay, get it together, buddy. Shit. I'm gonna die. Okay. So I think we've read enough of this article, and we get the point they're trying to make. Let's go ahead and move over to a contrary article that I think is a much better perspective. Rand Paul. Someone has to trace the money flowing from corporations to protests and riots. I agree, Mr. Paul, and I'm glad you're bringing this back up. This is the second time I've reported on him bringing this up. Not the same instance. This is the second instance I've seen him bring this up. Senator Rand Paul told FNC's Janine Pirro last night that the Justice Department needs to investigate the funding sources for Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and other groups organizing protests around the country this summer. So below this is just a transcript of their conversation, and I'm not going to bother reading the whole thing to you. I just wanted to bring up that Rand Paul is out there, and he is saying, hey, investigate who's funding this so we can cut it off at the source. Let's all pretend like our opinions matter and leave them in the comments below. And remember, this is social media, so do all the things.